Hi everyone, my name's Leah and I didn't think I'd ever be coming on TikTok and being this vulnerable, I can't lie. But I've been left with no choice. This is my story. In 2007, my boyfriend was unalived in police custody. Justice for Jason McPherson. Now, he was the absolute love of my life. I'm not going to get into it, but he was the absolute love of my life. And I was only 19 at the time, and he got taken from me so quickly when I was just like in the peak of falling in love with him. And he had so many snitches and rats around him, and it was the people he was moving with that's what ended up in leading him to these circumstances where he was unalived by the police. Now, when this happened in 2007, like I don't even think it was a couple of months later, I got recruited into a church called Under Dagwood Mills. It's currently known as First Love mainly. And they groomed me and they took advantage of me. And my pastor told me that mental health was a demon and that I was filled with the 7 deadly sins, because I have a past of CCE, child criminal exploitation, and gang affiliation. So I started thinking that, you know, my ex-boyfriends had been filled with all these demons. And so I had now been filled with all these demons and I needed to get delivered. At the time, when my boyfriend unalived, obviously it was so traumatic and I had other things going on, which I'll explain in another video. I had like mental health services and stuff involved, but my pastor basically said to me that the mental health services, like basically like none of it is real, because mental health is a demon and I need to get delivered. That's how they started brainwashing me. So I was like, how do I need to get delivered? I need this deliverance. It was like I started becoming like an addict. Like I need this deliverance because I was desperate. Because my boyfriend had been unalived and I was confused and I was in psychosis and I was young and I was vulnerable and I didn't have a dad growing up. So I was so vulnerable. And they talk about this spiritual dad thing. So I took on this guy like my spiritual dad. Anyway, I was vulnerable and I believed him and I was desperate and I wanted a way out. I wanted to escape. I didn't want to be in the reality where my boyfriend had been taken away from me so suddenly, so soon. And I dived into the work of God and I dived into the things of God. I was just trying to escape. And I just became like addicted and codependent to the environment, and they were grooming me because I can sing. As soon as they heard I could sing, that's when they just started getting their claws into me, because they get their claws into like gifted, talented people, and music is very important in these places of worship. So when you have something that they can use, that's when they'll invest in you, but they won't invest in the people that aren't as useful to them. Sorry guys, I've gone a bit off. So anyway, I was just in there for years. I'm not going to talk about all the abuse. I'll talk about that in another video, but it's just high control in there. You need to, they're worldwide religious organizations, and there's a lot of free labor for profit. So we're used to go out and evangelize, recruit, because bums on seats equals coins. But obviously at the time I was in psychosis because my boyfriend had been unalived by the police, and they do a lot of fair-based programming. So they talk a lot about like unaliving and curses and things like that. So because the police unalived my boyfriend, I knew that I thought anyway I wouldn't get justice in the world. And how the pastor was telling me, he was saying that I wouldn't get justice. That justice comes from the Lord. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And I would sit in my room every day and I'd pray in tongues and the Psalms, the verses in the Old Testament, because, you know, like doing curses against the people that unalived him. I thought that there would be more fruit, more of an outcome, you know, praying in the spirit, you know, against these police officers that unalived my boyfriend, instead of being out and protesting with the family and supporting the family and being there and making sure that people were okay. Before I knew it, I was just completely like immersed in the environment, because it's very high control and they make you isolate people and they tell you everyone in the world is evil and bad. worldly music is evil, you know, everyone's evil, you have to hate your mother and father, you know, take up your cross and follow Jesus. It's really radical. So I wanted to escape the world because I didn't want to be here. That's the truth. And then there was like this way out, and you know, I could become a new creature and become born again, and you know, my head was in the clouds, and then I was in a cognitive dissonance state, and I ended up staying in this church cult for 18 years because I was so deeply in love with my boyfriend at the time that I couldn't handle living without him. And so this rhetoric that they sold to me, like, I'm saving souls for Christ, and I thought I could save the guys, you know, the guys on the roads. There's no gangsters in the church cult. It's the bag of nerds, clowns. So I didn't save anyone from the roads in there. It's just recycled Christians. Thought that I could, you know, save people, like give their life to Christ and whatever. And I had the love bombing born again experience, and I thought I had this whole family, and they told me everyone was EVIL, and you know, I was just brainwashed. So when I went from like psychosis into like religious psychosis, and you know, instead of like me going to like mental health services and getting medication and getting therapy and getting support, I was using the setting as a coping mechanism, and I became addicted to the environment, to the prayers, to the deliverance, to the conferences, to the 4-hour conversations with the pastor, the counselling sessions. They just indoctrinate you through the cult leader's book. It's an echo chamber. Everybody's thinking, talking the same. There's no freedom. So you're just, I was already messed up in the head. You get it? My boyfriend's unalived in police custody. I have to go and view his body. Like, that is how I entered in there. Do you understand? That was how vulnerable I was. And they took advantage. They took 18 years of my life. I should have been out there protesting. I should have been out there fighting for justice for my boyfriend. And they stole that chance from me. They took it away like everything else. So anyway, I'm in this cult. There's just so much abuse going on. Fast forward, I'm in there, I don't know, like maybe 7-8 years. I meet someone on Instagram, and we start speaking, and long story short, because of the setting and the indoctrination, I ended up getting married, engaged to this guy after 2 months and getting married in under a year. I was in religious psychosis and not in my right mind. Because of the doctrine that's taught in there, there's a lot of marriage. Even if you're not thinking about marriage and you don't want it, you feel like it's something that you have to do to get to heaven. You feel like it's a part of that, and you like need a head. There's a lot of like gender hierarchy and inequality in there. So anyway, fast forward like 10 years later, I had a child in my marriage. I have 2 kids now, and since the trauma of the realization that I was in a church cult, I've obviously left and got a divorce, and I started going on this healing journey where I started to unpack all of the trauma. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is because it's been almost 20 years, and obviously a part of my healing journey, I've been documenting it online, etc. Now, it's so hard for me because it feels so fresh for me, and I have to also appreciate that this has been so long for the family, but because of the cult, do you see what I'm saying? And I need the world to know the damage that they have caused me, because I cannot do this alone. I think about this all the time, every second, and I've got to have an outlet and a support, and the collective support me. They comment, they reach out to me, and the comments and the support and the online community that I have formed gives me the strength to wake up every day. And I want to say again, if anything I've put up has distressed the family, I'm genuinely deeply sorry. I just don't know what to do. This is so hard. Don't you see, guys? I'm having to process this 20 years later, and you know, people are trying their best to just get on with their life and the family, and I'm just processing this now. These church cults do so much damage, and you know, now I'm almost 40, you know, my boyfriend's unalivement that happened, you know, almost 20 years ago. It feels like it happened like last week or yesterday. It feels so fresh because I didn't get a chance to grieve him, because as soon as he unalived, I got recruited into this cult, and they were just filling my head with just nonsense, absolute nonsense, and I was so vulnerable. And you know, you'll notice in these so-called places of worship and whatever, it's just vulnerable young people. I'm telling you right now, this is what I'm going to tell you. In these so-called places of worship, it's just people who are mentally unwell and people with all different types of traumatic past. That's what the common denominator is. You come into these spaces in crisis, when you're in trauma, when you're at a crossroad. That's why these so-called testimonies, they're not testimonies. That is projection, that they're telling on themselves. They're all vulnerable. They all have the same story. No one ever comes in saying, oh, I've won the lottery, let me, you know, thank the Lord. And then they use all of this mystical manipulation to twist the scripture, to demonize rich people, the wealthy, the world, luxury, all of that. It's just about a balance, guys. And I'm telling you something now. The mega church ruined my life, and religion ruined my life. I'll tell you that for free. And the worst decision that I ever made was stepping foot into that church cult under Daggy Mills. You know, I think everybody should stay away. The state that I'm in right now is because of that church cult. I'm in a worse state than I was when I walked into the church cult. Thank God I've still got my spirituality and my faith in God, because if I didn't have that, I don't know where I would be right now. Guys, please, if you do watch this to the end and you come across this video, could you please give me a follow? They've been trying to stop me from getting followers so that I can create a playlist, be able to have my content organized so that survivors of the collective can access the content more easily. And just thank you for your support. I hope that